All right, let's talk about the unsung heroes of our immune system, antibodies. You can think of them as your body's own personal, highly trained security force. We're going to look at how they work naturally, and then how scientists are actually engineering them to take on some of our absolute toughest diseases.
I mean, have you ever really thought about it? Every single day, you're walking through a world filled with countless bacteria, viruses, all sorts of invaders. So, how is it that your body doesn't just collapse? How does it survive and even thrive? Well, the answer comes down to this one single molecule, and it is incredibly elegant and powerful. And that molecule, of course, is the antibody. So, let's start at the beginning and really look at what makes this thing your body's perfect weapon. Okay, so at its most basic level, an antibody is all about recognition. Its job sounds simple, but it is absolutely critical. Find the enemy, tag it, and then signal for its destruction. It's kind of like the immune system's bouncer, pointing at an invader and just saying, hey, you're not on the list. You don't belong here. So, if you could see one, it has this classic Y shape, and it's built from 4 protein chains. 2 big ones we call heavy chains, and 2 smaller, light ones. But the real magic, the business end, is right at the tips of that Y. That's the antigen binding site. And you gotta understand, this thing is hyper-specific. It's like a key designed to open only one single lock. And that lock? That's the antigen, which is just a unique marker on whatever's invading your body. Okay, so that brings up a huge question, right? If one antibody can only recognize one specific threat, how on earth does our body build an arsenal big enough to fight off the millions of different invaders out there?
Yeah, this is really one of the big mysteries of immunology. If every antibody is a unique key, how does our body basically become a master locksmith? How is it able to create a key for almost any lock it could possibly run into, even for locks it's never ever seen before? Well, the answer is just brilliant. It's like a genetic lottery that can create trillions of different antibodies. See, your body doesn't keep a blueprint for every single one. That'd be impossible. Instead, it has these little gene segments that it shuffles and combines in countless ways. Think of it like a deck of cards being constantly shuffled. Then, to get the fit just right, it even introduces tiny little changes, mutations. And here's the best part. Once it lands on a winning combination, a B cell that's pumping out a super effective antibody, it just starts making clones of it, fast. It means our body is creating this constantly evolving defense system, completely on the fly. And all this diversity leads to some pretty cool specialization. You've got 5 main classes of antibodies, and you can think of them like different units in an army, each with a very specific job. You've got IgM, that's your first responder, the first one on the scene of a fight. Then there's IgG, that's your long-term veteran force, providing immunity for the long haul. It can even cross the placenta to protect a fetus. And IgA, that's the security guard at the gates, standing watch in your gut and lungs, stopping invaders before they even get a foothold. It's a seriously specialized team. Look, our natural immune system is just incredible, right? But what happens when it gets overwhelmed? Or worse, what if it gets tricked? Well, that's where science has to step in. And that brings us to our next big idea, actually building antibodies in a lab. Because for really complex diseases, like cancer, which is a master of disguise and can trick our immune system, or autoimmune disorders where the system literally turns on itself, our natural defenses just aren't always enough. They can fall short. So we desperately needed a way to design and manufacture our very own custom-built antibodies. And today, there are basically 2 main ways we do this. First up is recombinant DNA technology. This is where we turn microorganisms, like yeast or bacteria, into tiny little antibody factories inside these huge bioreactors. It's super precise, you get a really pure product, but it can be expensive, and that cost, of course, can get passed on to patients. The other main route is transgenic technology. Some people call it molecular farming. Here, we engineer entire animals or plants to produce antibodies, maybe in their milk, for instance. Now, this can be way more cost-effective for making massive amounts, which could make treatments cheaper for everyone. But, as you can imagine, it comes with a lot more regulatory hurdles and some pretty big ethical questions. So that first method, the recombinant process, it's really like following a high-tech blueprint. First, scientists find and isolate the exact genes for the antibody they want to make. Then they insert those genes into host cells. And from there, they just let those cells do all the heavy lifting, becoming little factories that pump out the antibody. Finally, it's all carefully purified, and what you're left with is a powerful, super-targeted medicine. And the results of all this biotech?
Honestly, they're nothing short of revolutionary. It's brought us into a whole new age of medicine, one that's powered by these incredible engineered antibodies.
What this technology gives us are called monoclonal antibodies, or EMs for short. The mono part means one, so think of them as an army of identical, lab-grown clones, all programmed to hunt for one single target. This isn't a general scattershot immune response. No, this is like sending in a special forces team with one and only one mission: find and neutralize this very specific cancer cell.
And their impact? It's just enormous. We're using these engineered antibodies for all sorts of things now. We use them to treat cancer by literally blocking its growth signals. We use them to calm down an overactive immune system in diseases like rheumatoid arthritis. We can even attach chemotherapy to them and use them like a guided missile to deliver poison directly to a tumor and nowhere else. And hey, they're also the backbone of diagnostic tests for everything from HIV to COVID-19. You've probably used one.
But here's the crazy part. We're really just getting started. This technology is moving at an incredible speed, and the future is all about getting even more precise, even more targeted, and even more effective. So what's next? What's on the horizon? Well, scientists are now using AI to design completely new antibodies on a computer, basically from scratch. They're using CRISPR gene editing to make the whole production process way more efficient. And they're even creating these next-gen antibodies, things like bispecifics that can grab onto two different targets at the same time, or tiny little nanobodies that are so small they can sneak into places that normal antibodies just can't reach. So, from our body's own natural defenders to these lab-engineered superheroes, the antibody has become one of our most powerful tools in all of medicine. And it really leaves us with a pretty exciting question, doesn't it? As we literally become the architects of our own immunity. What diseases, the ones that seem unbeatable today, will we finally be able to erase from existence? Something to think about. Thanks for joining me.